Okay, we are going to make a start now. So welcome everyone to our GCSE Maths session. In today's lesson, we are going to be looking at cylinders and the area of a circle. Okay, so I did have a starter question. Well then, to those who've had a go at it, we're going to go through the starter question now, and then we're going to move in to today's lesson. And then sort of towards the end, we're going to have a short look at as well. To summarize our understanding. So, in terms of this exam question, if we start off, how are we going to answer this question? So it says the diagram shows a box. It says 5 of these boxes are going to be painted. Each pot of paint can cover 6 meters squared. How many pots of paint are needed to paint the 5 boxes? So this is about surface area. The reason why this is about surface area is because we're talking about the area on the outside of the shape. When we're painting, we don't paint the inside of the shape, we paint the outside of the shape. Okay, so we're talking about the area on the outside, the perimeter of the shape. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to work out the surface area of each of these boxes, and then we're going to work out how much pots of paints we're going to need. We know that 1 pot of paint is going to cover 6 meters squared. What is the title of today's lesson is cylinders and the area of a circle. And that's what we're going to look at in today's lesson. Cylinders and the area of a circle. So, if we start off on answering this question, we need to work out the surface area of 1 box first. So step 1 is the surface area of 1 box. So we know that 1 box looks just like this. We're going to work out the surface area of this box. Okay, so remember the surface area is just the area of all the faces added together. So we're going to work out the area of this face first, over here, the front face, and that's going to be the same as the area of the back face. So the front face is just going to be 100 multiplied by 50. So 100 multiplied by 50 is going to give you, so 100 multiplied by 50 is going to give you 5,000. Okay, and this is centimeters squared, and this is the front face. Okay, we need to work out the back face. The back face is going to be the same as the front face. Okay, so we're going to multiply this by 2. The back face is going to be 5,000 centimeters squared as well. Okay, now if we work out the side face, this face, that's going to be the same as the left side face. So to work out the area of one side face, it's going to be 50 times 40, and that's going to give you 2,000 centimeters squared. Okay, and this is going to be for the right side face. And we need the left side face as well, and it's going to be the same. So 2,000 centimeters squared for the left side face. Okay, and then we need to work out the top and the bottom. Okay, so the top is this face over here, and that's going to be the same as the bottom. So we know that this distance over here is 100 centimeters, and we know that this distance over there is 40 centimeters. So it's going to be 100 times 40. So it's 100 times 40, and that's going to give you 4,000. And it's going to be the same for the top and the bottom. Okay, so it's going to be 4,000 centimeters cubed squared for the bottom. So this is the top face, and this is going to be the bottom. Okay, and now we're just going to add them all together. So 5,000 at 5,000 is 10,000. 10,000 at 2,000 is 12,000. 12,000 at 2,000 is 14,000. 14,000 at 8,000 is 22,000. So it's going to be 22,000 centimeters squared as the total surface area. 22,000 centimeters squared. Okay, so that's for one box. So for one box to be painted, it needs an area of 22,000 centimeters squared. Now, what we're going to do now is that it says each pot of paint can cover 6 meters squared. 6 meters means something like, let's say 6 meters squared. That's how much area. So we could say that this is 3 meters and this is 2 meters, and that would give you an area of 6 meters squared. Okay, now if you convert that into centimeters, it would be 300 multiplied by 200, okay, which would get you 6 followed by 4 zeros. It would get you 60,000. So we need it in meters squared. So at the moment we have it in centimeters squared. We need it in meters squared. So to convert this into meters squared, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to divide by 100 squared. Okay, so what we're going to do is divide by 100 squared. So that's going to give us, we're going to divide by 10,000 basically. That's going to give you 2.2 meters squared. So 22 centimeters squared is the same as 2.2 meters squared. Okay. Now that's for one box. The area of one box is 2.2 meters squared for surface area. What we're going to do is we're going to multiply it by 5 because we have 5 boxes. So 2.2 multiplied by 5, and that's going to give us 11. Okay, that's 11 meters squared. That's how much surface we have. So we know that each pot of paint covers 6 meters squared. How many pots of paints do we need to cover 5 boxes to cover 11 meters squared? We're just going to do 11 meters squared divided by 6 meters squared, and that's going to get us 1.83 reoccurring. So we're going to need 2 pots of paint to cover the area. Okay, and the reason why this was a bit harder was because there was a conversion that was required over here, because we had to convert from centimeters squared into meters squared. That's why it was a bit harder over here. But if you got the part of working out the surface area, to work out the surface area of one box, all you need to do is work, total together all the surface areas, and you got 22,000 centimeters squared. You would have realized that each pot of paint can cover 6 meters squared. The units are not the same. We need to make the units the same. So that's why 22,000 centimeters squared, because it's squared and not just centimeters, to convert from centimeters to meters, you need to divide by 100. Okay, we're converting from centimeters squared to meters squared. We're not converting from centimeters to meters, we're converting from centimeters squared to meters squared. So this time, you're not going to divide by 100, you're going to divide by 100 squared, because everything is squared. So you're going to have to divide by 100 squared as well to convert it into meters squared. So when you convert it into meters squared, you're going to get this 2.2 meters squared. That's your surface area of one box. And then what you're going to do is, because we have 5 boxes, you're going to multiply the surface area by 5. So 2.2 times 5 is going to give you 11 meters squared. And you know that one pot of paint can cover 6 meters squared. We have 11 meters squared, so you're going to do 11 meters squared divided by 6 meters squared, and that's going to get you 1.83 reoccurring. And you can't have a decimal, so you have to round it up to the nearest pot of paint. So it's going to be 2 pots of paint as your final answer. Okay, so that was a question that we had in our last lesson, and I've just sort of done it as a recap because we never got onto it in our last lesson. If you have any questions, just let me know in the Q&A on the question. And then we're going to move on now to today's lesson, where we're going to focus on cylinders and the area of a circle. So moving on, we're going to have a quick recap for the area of a circle for anyone that struggles with it. The formula to work out the area of a circle is pi r squared. So pi times r squared. That's the area of a circle. So it says over here, a circle that has a diameter of 12 millimeters, you need to work out the circumference of the circle. So we're not actually working out circumference, but the only reason I've put it in this example is because you need to know the formula to work out the circumference of a circle as well. It's not really applicable, just so I'd include it for this lesson. When you're working out the circumference of a circle, that basically means you're working out the perimeter of a circle. And when you're working out a perimeter of a circle, all that means is that you're working out the length around it, the length on the outside of it. Okay, and there's a formula for that. When you're working out the circumference of a circle, all you're going to do is you're going to do pi times the diameter. That's how you work out the circumference of a circle. So in this case, the diameter is 12 millimeters. All you're going to do is you're going to do pi times 12, and that's going to give you 12 pi. When it says give your answer in terms of pi, you're going to just leave it in pi. Yeah, so the area of a circle is over here, pi r squared. Okay, now over here for the second question, it says a circle has a radius of 8 centimeters. Work out the area of the circle. So the radius, to get the radius from the diameter. So if you're going from diameter to radius, this is just a recap. You have to divide by 2. If you're given the radius, then you don't need to do anything. So over here, the radius is 8 centimeters. We know that the area of a circle is pi times r squared. So it's going to be pi times 8 squared. Okay, so 8 squared is 64, and then 64 times pi is 64 pi. When it says leave your answer in terms of pi, you just put pi at the end. You don't need to type into your calculator or anything. You just need to write your answer in terms of pi. When it says in terms of pi, they're basically telling you you don't need to use a calculator for this question. So over here we had 12 pi, and over here we had 64 pi. This is really important when you're working out the volume of a cylinder. So we have 12 pi. When you're working out the area of a circle, you do pi times r squared. Okay, so I'm going to go through an example, and then we're slowly going to move into harder questions, which I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to have a go at, and then I'll go through the answers with you after that. So it says a cylinder has a radius of 5 centimeters and a height of 12 centimeters. Work out the volume of the cylinder, giving your answer in terms of pi. So remember in our last lesson, or a couple of lessons back, we looked at the volume of anything, volume of any prism. And to work out the volume of any prism, we looked at the fact that you can do the area of the cross section and you can multiply it by the depth. This was the way that you can work out the volume of any prism. Now, the cylinder is an example of a prism. A prism is basically where you have any shape that runs constantly throughout the whole 3D shape. Okay, so you could have something like this. Okay, this is an example of a triangular prism. Okay, because you've got a 2D shape, a cross section, which is a triangle, and it's running throughout the shape. Yeah, this over here is an example of a pentagonal prism because the pentagon is being stretched all the way through the shape. Okay, the only thing that is not a prism is a cone. Okay, and the reason why a cone is not a prism is because if you have a look at the cone keeps getting narrower and converges to a point. That's why it's not prism, it's just a 3D shape. But these examples, a cylinder, you have a circle that goes all the way through the shape, and that's why it's a prism. So it says a cylinder has a radius of 5 centimeters and a height of 12 centimeters. Work out the volume of the cylinder, giving your answer in terms of pi. Again, it says give your answer in terms of pi, which is telling you you don't need a calculator to do this. So for this, you're going to do the same exact thing. You're going to do the area of the cross section, and then you're going to multiply it by the depth, okay, or the height. So if we have a look now, area of a cross section, the cross section is just the 2D shape that is being stretched. And the cross section in this case is a circle. The circle is the main 2D shape that you can see. So we're going to work out the area of the circle. And we know that the area of a circle is just pi r squared. That's the area of a circle. And we know that the radius is 5 centimeters. If we have a look, we see that the radius is 5 centimeters. So all we're going to do is we're going to do pi times 5 squared. 5 squared is 25, and 25 times pi is 25 pi. Okay, so we've worked out the area of the circle. We've worked out the area of this circle over here. And now all we need to do is we need to multiply by the depth or the height. Now the height we can see is 12 centimeters. So all we're going to do, we've worked out the area of the cross section, which is the circle. You've got 25 pi. You're just going to multiply it by the height, which is 12. Okay, and that's going to give you an answer. 25 times 12 is 300, and you have 300 pi as your final answer. So the volume of this cylinder is 300 pi. So 300 pi centimeters cubed. That's how you would answer this question. Okay, now I have a question for you guys to have a go at. I want you guys to have a go at this one. I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes, and then I'm going to start going through the answers. Once you've got an answer, you can let me know in the Q&A. If you have any questions, also let me know in the Q&A. Okay, for anyone that has a question on this one, you're saying that there's two circles. The volume, it doesn't matter how many circles there are. It only matters that you're working on the area which is inside the shape. If you're working on the surface area or the perimeter, the surface area of the shape and not the volume, then you would have to add the areas of the two circles together before you work out your surface area. When you're working out the volume, you don't need to work out the surface area of the two circles. You only need to work out the area of one circle and then multiply it by the depth. Okay, I'm going to start going through it now. I can see that we've got lots of well, I've got there's some different answers there, and I think that's happened because you know half the diameter. So remember, a cylinder has a diameter of 9 centimeters and a height of 11 centimeters. We need to work out the volume of the cylinder. When we're working out the volume of the cylinder, we need to use our formula because the cylinder is an example of a prism. Okay, it's an example of a prism. And because it's an example of a prism, you're going to follow this formula. Okay, so the volume of prism is going to be equal to the area of cross section multiplied by the depth. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to work out the area of the cross section. The cross section is just the 2D shape. So in the cylinder, the main 2D shape that you can see is a circle. Okay, you can see that the circle is present and the circle is the main 2D shape that's being stretched. So the cross section is a circle. Okay, so what we have to do is we need to work out the area of that circle. Now it says that the circle has a diameter of 9 centimeters. Now, if the circle has a diameter of 9 centimeters, we know to work out the area of a circle, you're going to have to use this formula, pi times r squared. That's how you work out the area of a circle. We know that the diameter is 9, but we don't want the diameter. We're given over here the diameter is 9. We don't want the diameter. We want the radius. And the radius is half of the diameter. So over here, what we're going to have to do is we're going to do 9 divided by 2 to work out what the radius is. And 9 divided by 2 gives you 4.5 centimeters. So the radius is 4.5 centimeters. A cross section is just the 2D shape. Okay, so we looked at it in our volume of prisms topic a couple of lessons back. If you've not watched that, the recording is on YouTube to watch that. But cross section is basically just your 2D shape. Yeah, if you have a 3D shape, it's just the 2D shape version of the 3D shape. So it's the front face that you can see. So in this cylinder, the main 2D shape that you can see is a circle. If you look at a cuboid, the main shape that you can see is a rectangle. If you look at a triangular prism, the main shape that you can see is a triangle. That 2D shape is the cross section. And the first step to work out the volume of any prism is you work out the area of that 2D shape. So if it was a triangle, you work out the area of the triangle first. In this case, it's a circle, so you work out the area of the circle first. So we've worked out that the radius is 4.5 centimeters. So we're going to work out the area of a circle, pi times 4.5 squared. Okay, that's what we're going to do. And 4.5 squared gives you 20.25. So the area of a circle is 20.25 pi. That's the area of a circle in terms of pi. And then what we're going to do, we've worked out the area of the cross section, which is the circle. We're just going to multiply it by the depth now. Okay, and the depth is the height, how much through the shape it goes. And it goes 11 centimeters through the shape. So you're just going to do 20.25 pi, and you're going to multiply it by 11. Okay, and that's going to give you 222.75 pi. However, the question says that it wants it to one decimal place. So it doesn't want the answer in terms of pi. So this won't get you full marks. It will get you most of the marks, but it won't get you full marks. You need to type this into your calculator. 222.75 pi. That's what you have to type into your calculator, and then that will output an answer of 699.78973636 and so on. That's what it will output, and you just have to round that to one decimal place. Okay, so 7 is one decimal place, 8 rounds up, so it's going to be 699.8 centimeters cubed to one decimal place. That's what your answer is going to be. Okay, so with questions like these, all you need to do is you need to remember that this formula that we looked at in our first lesson, volume of a prism equals area of the cross section multiplied by the depth. The cross section is just this 2D shape aspect that you can see. So in this case, you can see a circle, that's the 2D shape. You're going to work out the area of that circle. So you're going to do pi r squared, and you're going to work out the area. And then you're going to multiply the area by the height or the depth. Okay, and the height or the depth is 11 centimeters. So you're going to do 20.25 pi, and you're going to multiply it by 11. And that's going to give you 222.75 pi. Now, if it said leave your answer in terms of pi, this would be your answer. Because it didn't say leave your answer in terms of pi, you need to type this into your calculator. So type in calculator, and then you have to get the full answer and then round it to one decimal place, just as the question says. How did I get 222.75 pi? The reason why I got it is because I worked out the area of the cross section over here, which is just a circle. So I worked out the area of the circle, and that gave me 20.25 pi. And then all I did was I multiplied that by the height, which was 11 centimeters, given over here. And 20.25 pi times 11 gives me 222.75 pi. And then I converted that into normal numbers by typing it into the calculator, and that gave me 699.8 to one decimal place. Okay. Okay, so I've got another question over here. This is slightly harder, but it's the same concept. Just remember, a semicircle is half of a circle. Okay, I can repeat it again for those who want it. Before we move on to that question, guys, I'm just going to go over this one last time over here. So to work out the volume of this cylinder, you work out the cross section, and you realize that the 2D shape over here is a circle. You can see a circle over here. You work out the area of that 2D shape. So you work out the area of a circle. And once you've worked out the area of a circle, all you do is you substitute into the equation pi r squared. You know that the radius is 4.5 because you have to divide the diameter by 9. And you would do pi times 4.5 squared. That would get you this, the area of the circle. And then you need to multiply the area of a circle by the height or the depth, which is 11 centimeters. And then that would get you your final answer, which you can then simplify and then round to one decimal place. If you got 699.8 straight away, that's completely fine. That would be because you when you type this into your calculator, you got the straight number. You didn't leave your answer in terms of pi. I left in terms of pi till the end. So if you got 699.8 straight away, that's nothing to worry about. You've just literally used the numbers from the start. I left in terms of pi until the end. Okay, next question. I want you guys to have a go at this question, and then I'm going to start going through it. Just remember, to a semicircle is half of a circle. So work out the area of a circle as normal, and then half your answer to work out the area of a semicircle. And then everything else stays the same. You multiply it by the depth to work out the volume. Okay, I'm going to start going through the answers in about 2 minutes. Okay, just one more minute, and then I'm going to start going through the answers. Okay, I'm going to start going through the answers now. Okay, so for anyone that doesn't understand it as of yet, um, I'll go through it, so hopefully you'll understand it by the end of the explanation. So it says a solid cylinder is cut in half to form a semi-cylinder with a radius of 20 centimeters and a length of 75 centimeters. We need to work out the volume of the semi-cylinder. Because we're working out the volume, this is still a prism. So what we're going to do is we're going to work out the again, to work out the volume of a prism, we're going to do the area of the cross section, and we're going to multiply it by the depth or the height. That's what we're going to do. Now, the cross section, this case, is not a circle. It's a semicircle. Okay, we don't, the main shape is no longer a circle. We have a semicircle, which is in place over here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to work out the area of the semicircle. Now, how do we work out the area of a semicircle? To work out the area of a semicircle, you have to work out the area of a circle and divide it by 2 because it's half of a circle. So it's going to be area of a circle, and then we're going to just divide it by 2. So the area of a circle, we know it's pi r squared. So we know that the area of a circle is pi r squared, and we know that the radius is 20 centimeters. So all we're going to do is pi 20 squared, and that's going to get us 400 pi. So the area of the full circle is 400 pi. However, we don't want a full circle, we want the area of a semicircle. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide this by 2 because we want the area of a semicircle. We're going to divide it by 2. So that's going to get us 200 pi. So the area of this semicircle over here is 200 pi. Now we know that the area of the cross section, the area of the semicircle, we've just found it, it's 200 pi centimeters squared. All we're going to do is we're going to multiply it by the depth. The depth is how much through the shape we go, how much it's being stretched. And you can see that it's being stretched by 75 centimeters. So all you're going to do is you're going to do 200 pi and you're going to multiply it by 75. Okay, so we've got 200 pi and you're going to multiply it by 75. And it says give your answer to 3 significant figures, so you're going to have to use a calculator for this. So what this is going to give you is this is going to give you 15,000 pi. And if you write that as a decimal, because it says give your answer to 3 significant figures, it gives you 47123.8898. That's what it gives you as a decimal. Okay, it says 3 significant figures, so you're going to count the numbers 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3 significant figures is here. You're going to chop it off. We have 471. Does 2 round up or down? It rounds down, so it's just going to be left with placeholders. So that's your answer. It's going to be 47,100 centimeters cubed. Okay, so you should have realized that this is a semicircle. They can ask you this in higher papers. 47,100 centimeters cubed. You work out your area of the cross section, which is a semicircle. Work out the area of that. So you work out the area of the full circle and divide it by 2 because the semicircle is half of the circle. And then you multiply it by the depth, how much through the shape that it goes. And it goes 75 centimeters through the shape. So if you multiply the two, you get 47,100 centimeters cubed as your final answer to 3 significant figures. It does give you a decimal answer. However, it says round your answer to 3 significant figures. So you count the first 3 numbers, look at the next number, does it round up or down, round it, and then add in placeholders for the rest of your columns. Okay, so you can't half 20 first. Okay, 20 is the radius of the circle. You can't half the radius because if you half the radius, the circle is going to go smaller. So you can't half the radius first. You can only half it after you've calculated the area of the full circle, because once you've done the area of the full circle, then you half it to work out the area of the semicircle. If you got 4,710 on your calculator, then you have added a 0 somewhere. You've forgot to add a 0 somewhere. So you might have done 40 pi divided by 2 instead, but you're just missing a 0. So it's going to be just a silly mistake that you might have made somewhere in your calculations. Yes, we will do blockade. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do this final question over here, and then we're going to do a blockade. Okay, so it says a solid is formed Okay, actually, before we go that one more time, I'm gonna go through this because some people are struggling. So you get a cylinder. You've got this prism shape over here. You've got this prism shape over here, and you need to work out the volume of this semi-cylinder. To work out the volume of this semi-cylinder, this is a prism. You're gonna use this formula. Volume of a prism equals area of a cross section multiplied by the depth. That's what you're gonna do. And if you follow these rules over here, area of a cross section is just the 2D shape that you can see, the main 2D shape that you can see, and that's a semicircle in this case. So you're going to work out the area of the semicircle. To work out the area of a semicircle, you're okay. Just a minute. Can we not be making responses to other people's questions? Okay. So we can't be making these responses to other people's questions. This is inappropriate. And what we can do is I'm gonna just block the Q&A for the time being, and we'll sort out the issue. Okay, thank you for raising it up. It will be sorted out. Okay, so it should be sorted out now. You shouldn't be able to comment on other people's questions. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this question over here. Area of a semicircle. You work out the area of the full circle and you divide it by 2. Okay, now once you've got the area of the semicircle, all you do, you know this area over here, because you've divided your full area by 2, you just need to multiply it by the depth. Okay, the depth is how much through the shape we go. Okay, so the depth is 75, so you multiply it by 75. So this is the area of the semicircle, you multiply by 75 to get your final answer of 15,000 pi. Now, because it says to 3 significant figures, you need to put this into your calculator. Okay, now when you put it into your calculator, it will output this decimal and you just round it to 3 significant figures.